Hello and welcome to Roll for Topic, a roundtable discussion about topics related to running role-playing games. I'm Chris Salzman.
And I'm Andy Rao.
Andy, I have started reading The Gunslinger.
Oh, Chris, I'm so excited and so nervous about what you're about to share with us. Yes.
I am about 40% of the way through it right now, judging by
Has
my
anything horrifying happened yet? I
yes,
guess.
a
Okay.
lot of a
Okay.
lot of
Good.
horrifying things have
Good.
happened.
Okay,
Yeah,
then you
it is a
truly are reading The Gunslinger.
yeah, I really am reading The Gunslinger. Yeah, it is not the book that I thought it was going to be. Like you
Okay.
mentioned, there are lots of things in it that I think happen that are very unsavory. I will say that. So this is not a book to, I think, like maybe idly
Yeah.
pick up. But yeah, it's good so far. I mean, it's Stephen King sort of at his best. I think where you're just like, these characters are so compelling, like, and I sort of need to see what's about to happen. And there's twists and surprises at every turn. It's good so far. I'm really kind of wondering where it's going to go. I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's
So
like,
I
oh,
went on
God.
I went on the Splatbook podcast to discuss this a while
Yes,
ago.
yeah,
And I remember after we were done recording that episode, we all had a chat of like, we didn't really talk about any of the gross stuff.
yeah,
And a couple of us were like, that's kind of a bummer because the gross stuff is what kind of provides the friction of this
hmm,
story. Like the stuff that you really have to kind of deal with or confront as a reader.
yeah,
And so like I think about this periodically ever since our recording. Like I feel like we did this series a little bit of an injustice by talking about about the regular fantasy story stuff and not talking about the
yeah,
gross stuff, which really is like the parts where Stephen King is swimming in and like, you like
y-
fantasy, you like Western fantasy, huh? Well, here's some
yeah.
weird, uncomfortable stuff to like
Yes,
deal
yeah.
with.
Did you think about this? Yes, yeah.
Right.
There's yeah. So no spoilers,
Yeah.
about it if you're gonna read it. I mean, it is yeah, like there are parts of it where it's like he sort of confronts you with the reality of like what this sort of character who's named the Gunslinger, like what sort of following him around would be like, right? It's like, and it's not a very pleasant pleasant
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, so I guess my question for you and is that like, so would you classify this book as a Western? Or would you classify it as a fantasy novel?
I would classify it as a fantasy novel with really strong Western
Okay.
trappings.
Yeah.
That's my bias I'm bringing in from the later books, which
Mm,
do some of those later books are just pure like sci-fi fantasy,
okay.
and a couple of them are very close to pure Western. But
Hmm.
overall, I feel the series is best described as like a fantasy with strong
Yeah.
Western trappings.
It's interesting because when I picked it up, I 100% thought it was just like a Western, right? Like a kind of a standard
Yeah.
Western in the Stephen King style where there's like, something mildly supernatural happening or whatever like that. Yeah. So it's been a bit of like a jarring surprise in a good way to see that it's like, oh, like, no, there's a lot going on here. That's just
Yeah.
more kind of straight fantasy. So,
What it strikes me
yeah.
as nowadays in this kind of post Marvel universe, this is this is a kind of classic example of what I would call like a multiverse
Hmm.
fantasy. Like
Yeah.
I think it's certainly hinted at in the first novel, but it doesn't really dive into it. But this is a fantasy series that is happy to just pop around the multiverse like at
Hmm.
will and pull in things from one universe and from another universe into its story. And
Yeah.
I don't remember how much of that really comes out in the first novel, The
Hmm.
Gunslinger. But I think you at least are getting some hints that like this is a story that does not feel especially bound to stay within like one setting.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's a character that was just introduced that is like, very clearly not of the time frame, the
Yeah.
time frame and the place, that the gunslinger is. But it's also very unclear to me right now, like reading it, like, is the gunslinger really part of this time and this place? Is the man in black, right? So like I've got a lot of questions that I'm sure we'll get into maybe, privately after
Yeah, for
after I'm
sure.
done with it. But yeah, it's good, right? So well, I will say one other thing that I wanted to say is, so I picked it up because I had been emailing with someone else about like a job thing a couple months ago, and they had mentioned that they just listened to Roll for Topic because they saw it on like my resume or something like that. They said they enjoyed it, which is always great to hear. And then
That's
they'd
more
also,
research than I've ever done upon seeing
oh,
someone's resume.
yeah,
Just FYI.
yes,
So
no,
absolute kudos to this person,
oh my
whoever
goodness,
they are.
yes, he amazing guy. Like I loved like chatting with him just for for the brief time that I did. Yeah, just like yeah, one of those people you're very happy to have run across.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we had been. I think you had mentioned the gun like that gunslinger splatbook episode, and he like just unprompted was like, Chris, like you have to read the gunslinger. And I was like, oh okay, like yeah. It's like you need to
It's a
try it.
condition of this job that you
Yeah,
have
it's a
read the
good no,
gunslinger.
yeah. Yeah, so I put it in my queue, right? So I finished up, a couple of these other books, and like it finally came up. The timing was perfect. Like the library copy came off on the hold, like right as I was finishing up my last book. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to dive into this and see. Yeah, it's also interesting. I'll just note, and we can move on after this. Stephen King has, I think, like two introductions in the version of the book that I'm reading, right? Because I
Yep.
think it's like 10th anniversary or 20th anniversary or something like that. But he mentions that when he was doing author events, like he would ask people if they'd ever read like the gunslinger, and like it was like a 50-50 split, right? So like people were sort of like in the dark tower, like this is why I'm here, like, and I love this stuff, or like they'd
Yeah.
never heard of it, didn't care about it at all. But it seems like Stephen King, like this is sort of his pet project, like this is the one that he really loves writing or loved
It is
writing.
Stephen King's like magnum opus,
Hmm.
and I mean I don't really want to spoil anything, but I will say it becomes clear by the end of the Dark Tower series that this is that Stephen King considers completing the Dark Tower series his life's work. Like, and that
Yeah,
is evident in the text of the Dark Tower series itself.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's also like just to relate it back to gaming too. I mean, I can see why this is an alluring setting for people who want to run games, right? Because I think I've heard that expressed by a couple people of like, oh, like wouldn't it be cool to run like a really good Dark Tower, Dark Tower esque? And I know that there's probably more than one product that is directly like sort of yeah referencing that. But yeah, like it is again, Stephen King is so good at this of just writing these places where you just sort of instantly feel like you can inhabit them in a way, and like right, you or I can't do that, right? But I think it's a good goal to to sort of set for
Yeah.
yourself of like yeah, how do you make this place such that on a one page description of it, sort of everybody knows exactly what this place is, knows sort of what the like what the potential avenues are for conflict, for problems they need to solve and things like that. And like how do you can like reveal more and more information as you're going on. And it's like the first sort of town that the gunslinger shows up in. It's just like I mean like I just feel like I know that place, right?
Yeah.
Despite like I don't live in a Western, Western novel or anything like that. But like there's just so much richness there, and like he does it in such an economy of language. It's like like despite the fact that he writes these huge, massive books, you still feel like you're reading this and like oh like this was like almost breezy, right? Like that. Yeah, my understanding of
Yeah.
this place.
Well, the question of the Dark Tower setting as a gaming setting is an interesting one because, like you say, there's this whole Weird West genre that
Mm-hmm.
exists in role playing that is obviously draws some inspiration from the Dark Tower series. But I think it's interesting that we've never seen an official licensed version of this setting in a gaming context, video
Mm-hmm.
games or tabletop games or anything at all. To me, the first Dark Tower novel feels like running a modern kind of indie narrative type game where you are throwing out to the players like, okay, tell me who's playing the piano in this
Mm-hmm.
saloon. Describe the saloon to me. Describe this little town to me. Give me an NPC, a weird NPC that shows up that somehow fits into this town.
Yeah.
It's like a story that understands really profoundly the archetypes it's drawing from, and
Yes. Yeah.
that feels like a really inviting game series to me. But at the same time, like if you were to say, should there be like a Dark Tower RPG game setting, that's like a harder thing to answer.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this in the past. Like, there are definitely novels, right, and stories and stuff that like they don't need to exist in like at your gaming table, right? Like, yeah, but there's is still something like alluring about like yeah the thought of it too. Like, yeah, like I don't know, like I mean, again, I'm only a handful of pages in into the first book, but like the thought of like a party of a bunch of gunslingers running around, it's like, well, that's right. Like the reason this works in the story is because there's sort of like there's like the one guy that you're following, right? Like you're not following like a party. They're not like, making tactical, like in the book, he's making tactical decisions, but it's very much just like he's just reacting to the situation, right? He has this one goal, he's just constantly reacting to the situation in front of him versus like, he's not sitting down and being like, okay, well, if I do, if I map out this strategy exactly, like this is how it's going to play play out. He's yeah,
Yeah. So, book 4 of the Dark Tower series is a flashback novel that
yeah. Okay.
tells the gunslinger's like backstory, kind of. So, it does that thing that good quote franchises, I hate that word, do, which is
Yes.
that,
Yeah.
like the first Star Wars movie, they like throw out a lot of stuff that kind of inspires your imagination without drawing boundaries or limits around it. So, like,
Hmm.
Star Wars is tossing out words like the Clone Wars. What is that? Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you're just free to imagine what that is. And I think the Dark Tower series as a whole, it does successfully present you with a setting that feels bigger than the one person and his pals. Like, as he goes through the series, he collects some pals and you get sort of a PC
Okay.
party
Yeah.
within a couple of books. But it feels like the sort of setting where a million awesome tales have taken place, and maybe your PCs might have been one of these awesome tales that are now a legend in the setting, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's a trick to doing a setting like that, right? Where it makes it feel really expansive. It just lets your imagination kind of go wild with like, wow, what how many I'm reading this one story which I'm enjoying, but how many other cool stories are happening just outside my field of vision. And to
Yeah.
me, that is the sort of setting that does make for like a great RPG setting. I think it's why like Star Wars works as an RPG setting, right? Because
Hmm.
right from the beginning, this is a setting that is bigger than the individuals we're following in the movie. Even though these individuals, yeah, are they important? Of course, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like yeah. I feel like there's this trope in gaming, right? Like if you think about like the D&D level 1 through 20 campaign, right? Like you hit like level 20, and at that point, like everything is about you, right? In that universe, right? Like there is nothing that you are not involved in, right? Like at this point, you are challenging the gods themselves, right?
Yeah,
And it's like there's something that is very fun and interesting about that. Like you're this multiverse traveling, like killing machine, right? Like at that point when your party's up there. But like for me, like I think it sounds like for you too, like it's the tantalizing like thought of like, oh, there's like all these adventuring parties in this world. Like there's all this stuff happening. It's not like this static thing that's sort of waiting for you as the heroes to interact with it, right? It's like everybody sort of has their own thing going on, right? And like yeah, and exactly like that's the compelling part of Star Wars is right. There's all these planets and there's like people doing their own things and like there's people that rule it, right? And it's like you don't really know about that until you're dropped into it, and it's like, oh, like what is this place? Like what's the story? And like the more that you learn about it, the less interesting it sort
yeah,
of gets because it becomes knowable, and then it's also like everybody knows you, right? Like knows the characters that you're playing, and it's like,
yeah,
well, now it's just my problems. It's not like your problems that I'm trying to help you solve. It's like, oh, it's just the problems of the party at that point. And I think that's often where like I've seen stories in tabletop games sort of a little bit going off the rails of like when the when the party gets to the point where like they're the drivers of the narrative and they're not just like reacting to it, or they are yeah, part of it, right? When they're
yeah,
the ones that it's like, yeah, no, it's all about us, right? It's like, okay, yeah, well, maybe it's time to retire.
yeah.
That point, yeah.
Well, I first read The Gunslinger back in probably the early 90s, and there is one thing from The Gunslinger that has stuck in my mind ever since I read it. It's
Hmm.
none of the plot points, it's none of the adventures that The Gunslinger has. It's the fact that when he appears in town, the guy playing the piano in the saloon is playing Hey Jude. And to
Yes,
me, when I
yes.
first read that as a kid, that
Hmm.
blew my mind. Like, I didn't know what I was dealing with.
Yes.
And even today, I can appreciate the power of that just little wrench thrown into what otherwise is. I think you have a handle on this setting, right? and he strolls into town, and it's this incredibly stereotypical Wild West setting. And then the GM throws in like, "Oh yeah, the guy at the piano is playing Hey Jude." Like what?
Yes.
I mean, it's just what you need, I think, to like make the
Uh-huh.
setting go from like, okay, whatever, I've seen this in a million places, to like, what is this place? I'm so curious
Yes.
about this place now.
Yes, yeah, and it is even presented as, like, the gunslinger understands that it's "Hey Jude," and everybody in the town is singing along with it too, and it's like, "Okay, yeah, this is different." It's, the show Bridgerton, which I know is, like, 100% not for Andy, but, like, Bridgerton does this
Yeah.
as well, where, like, they're so it's, like, Regency era, right, like, romance and stuff, but they're, all the musical cues are, like, modern songs that they've written, just, like,
Chris, you're
string quartet
blowing
versions.
my mind right now.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
is Bridgerton gonna be my favorite show all of a sudden? Like, because that's incredible. Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, we've made the jump from the gunslinger to Bridgerton, so I don't know if I should get some sort of award for genre fiction or or never be allowed to read another book again. Yeah, so like it is like a delightful trick because like you hear this song that you're like, oh, I know that song. Like, why do I know that song? Like, this is like in this context, right? And it really like it kind of like it places you in the mindset of right, and it's a little bit of a cheesy trick, but it's also a really good one too. Of like, oh, like these people are just like us, right? Like, right? Like it seems like this olden times thing, but like, they're exactly like us, right? And it helps you like kind of ground yourself in the story too, I think, because like, you're listening to the music that you listen to. So it's like, okay, so I can identify with them and it's okay for me to identify with
Okay,
them
so
too.
just to be
Yeah.
clear, this is like a historical show, but when you hear
Ooh.
music, it's like what, a
Yeah.
Coldplay song or something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, like a
Okay.
but it's like on a string quartet version of it.
Okay.
I'm going to hastily say, like, I would be wary of ever using the term historical along with Bridgerton because I'm sure
Okay.
there are many inaccuracies, but, yeah, it is a maybe it's like a cosplay version of of history. But yeah, it's so again, like it's an adult show, right? So children who are listening don't watch it. But yeah, like my wife loves it. Like I've watched all the seasons. When the fourth one comes out, I will watch it. I know Ben of Splatbook loves it too. Um, yeah, but it's yeah, this is just like one element of it that is like always stuck out with me. So like we have a couple of the soundtracks or one of the season soundtracks. It's like it's just fun to listen to. It's like these yeah modern songs rendered in like a Regency era string quartet.
Okay, I've never been more intrigued. I've never had faster whiplash from like, I will never watch this show, to I need to instantly pull this up on a streaming service and watch it.
This
Yeah.
is great. This is going to make Ben in particular extremely pleased. So,
Okay. It's
uh,
okay though that the only thing I like from the series is going to be that it plays like whatever
yeah.
Katy Perry songs like in
Yes. Yeah.
string quartet style, right? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's totally fine. Yeah, everybody's got
Okay.
their reasons. Okay. Anyway, let's set that aside. Yeah. So thank you for indulging me. Yeah, we'll continue to give you updates. Hopefully by the time we record next, I've finished the Gunslinger and I can join you in the love for the Dark Tower. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about, I think this might be the thing we talk about this week is so my daughter played in her very first D&D game. This was about a week and a half ago at this point. So I went over to one of her friends' house. So she's 9, and her friends that she played with, I think, are like 7 to 9 or so in that age range. It was as chaotic as everybody says that it is playing D&D with kids, and it was super fun. They all want to play again. It went really well. Yeah, so I got there, and so they had the starter set. So it was not Dragon of Icefire Peak. It was the other one,
It was
the
probably
shipwreck.
Stormwreck Isle or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
Stormwreck Isle. Yeah, so the Stormwreck Isle one, and so like a couple of the people had already played a few sessions or like one session, so they were on like chapter 3 in the book, right? Yeah, so like I got there and I was like immediately I was just sort of like looking around at the table and like okay, like I understand like the kid who's like trying to like read the book. I'm like, okay, do you want to be the DM? Right? Do you want to like
Yes.
take on this
Yeah, you
role? And
got
they
to
just
identify that kid right up front.
yeah, I picked him out. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm setting you on a path right now, but I was just like, do you want a DM? And he just like looked at me like this is like the greatest thing. Like he's been thinking about this, like thinking about this his whole life. Yeah, and so yeah, he took the book, and like I just sat next to him, and along with a couple other adults, we just sort of like helped manage some of the energy levels at the table. I'll say, yeah, manage some of the energy levels, making sure that people were being heard, and sort of just guided it a little bit. So this was my plan all along, was like as soon as possible we want to get them just sort of playing together, right? Like I don't want this to be D&D is a thing that an adult has to run, like a run for you, right? Like this is something that you guys can do. You guys can do together whenever you want. Yeah, so I sat there and just sort of like guided it, like gave this this blossoming new DM like some hints here and there. Like I mean, I think the first one was like he's just on chapter 3. There's a shipwreck with a harpy, right? That they can go investigate, and he was just like, okay, cool. Like so you're at the shipwreck. I'm like, wait a second. Like where were they before? Like why are they going to go to the shipwreck? Right? Like build the story a little bit. Some basic stuff like that. Which turns out like they didn't need that, right? Like they would have been perfectly happy to be like, okay, we're at a shipwreck, and like we're gonna explore it, right? Yeah, so it was fascinating to like watch. I mean, I love watching and playing with people who've never played a tabletop game before, because it's just it's super fun. But like especially with kids too, it's like the character sheet is bewildering. They don't care. They've like they've named their character. They know like the two things they can do. It's going to be super fun, and then they're just sort of like throwing out ideas, and like you or I would be 1,000,000% unsurprised that a harpy swoops in. Like you get up on the ship, it's like very clear, like there's bones everywhere, right? Like there's bones, there's gore everywhere. You search around, you find this nest and everything, so you'd be like, okay, cool, like we're about to get attacked. But these kids, like the harpy, harpy swoops in, and they're just like, oh my goodness, like what's happening, right? They just kind of erupting, and it just was like such a fun thing to be involved in and to watch, because I think like there is an emphasis when you're an adult, or at least like you're running around our circles, about like telling these rich, compelling narratives, and like having these really nice mechanics that fit well with the narrative and stuff. And like when you're a kid, you just don't care. Like you don't care as much because you're just excited about the thing itself, right? And like so for me, I mean, it's just like, oh, like this is like who the starter set is made for, like, right? Like this is like beginning D&D, this is beginning the tabletop hobby. It's like, oh, this is such a pure form and example of it, right? Because like they're not like, oh, like they're not making a decision of like, oh, like I don't want to use the encumbrance rules because like that's too complicated. They just don't use the encumbrance rules because they haven't heard about it heard about it ever. Or like or spell slots, it's like it's not a thing. It's just like, well, I've got magic missiles, so I'm just going to keep using that. Right. It's like, yeah, I just like really enjoyed it a lot. And just upon reflection, like kind of continue to enjoy it a lot. And I mean, they all want to play again. So we're hopeful that we can get another game going on Sunday. And I'm
Yeah.
hoping that at that one, I can remove myself even a little bit more, a little bit
Well,
more.
there's your mark of a
Yeah.
successful game, right? That they want to
Yeah.
play again, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I have a couple questions for you. Did they
Hmm.
get into their characters at all, or
A
did they
little
just
bit.
play themselves like during a harpy attack on a shipwreck?
Yeah. They did get into their characters a little bit, but it was very much like the heroic version of themselves, right? Because that's sort of all they can handle. But like I mean, they named their characters. They had pre-gen character sheets. My daughter, I gave her a bunch of options, and she chose the wizard. And I just was like, why did I give you options? Like I knew you were going to choose the wizard.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so like she named her character Iris. Like she thought really hard about it, and she started to like doodle on the character sheet, like doing all the classic things. Yeah, things there. So yeah, they were trying to sort of, yeah, they were playing their characters, but it was very much like their personality sort of playing
Yeah.
playing the
Now,
game. Yeah.
so much of D&D and other role-playing game design is about like kind of balancing the powers and abilities you have. In D&D, that often feels to me subjectively like they really come down hard on like what first like low level characters can actually do. I'm
Yeah.
just curious, like do they want to be able to fly around every turn because they have the levitate spell?
Hmm.
Or is it valuable to them that you have exactly one spell slot with levitate memorized
Hmm.
in it and you can use it once? Like, how did
Yeah.
they play with like, did they come into contact with the boundaries of like what you might call real D&D? And did
Hmm.
those boundaries make the game better, or did they just blow past them and were like, I want to do whatever I can
Yeah.
imagine?
Yeah, a little. So at one point, one of the characters wanted to do something that sort of just didn't make sense, right? And I was like, You're too far. You're number one, you're too far away. Number two, it's like, what are you actually trying to accomplish there?" Right? Yeah. So there was like one element of like like I wish I could have just been like, yeah, you try that, right? Or you just do that, but it's just like it didn't make sense to like to give the go ahead there. So part of that was me sort of modeling like you don't just get to do whatever you want, right? Like so that's I think that's also a valuable part about playing these games is learning some things like that. But what I will say is like I think they all gravitated towards this is the thing my character can do. So like one of them
Mm,
was like I really want to shoot a bow and arrow. So it's like great, you can there's a fighter pre-gen, you're a fighter as a bow and arrow, right? And so like she wanted to just that's what she wanted to do is shoot her arrow and like you know probably she should have taken disadvantage or whatever because she was too close to fire an arrow. But it's like well, we're not going to get into that. It's just like okay, that's your attack, right? Because
yeah.
it's really yeah. And then like like my daughter was using magic missile, and one of the other kids had an axe that he was using to try to swing, and it's like yeah. So they just really enjoyed doing that. It did have the experience, and like this happens in every D&D game that I've ever played with anyone for the first time. You roll and you don't hit and nothing happens, and like that just like they weren't like bothered by it too much, I think, because it wasn't happening over and over. But like we've been in that cycle. I think we've all been in that cycle where you're trying to hit
Yes.
something, you just can't roll high enough, and it's just like okay, cool, well my turn passes passes again where I don't hit. Yeah, but like there was a little bit of that twinge. I could see it in their eyes of like, oh, but like I wanted to hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I wish there was a better mechanic for that. Like oh, like you miss but you still do one damage or something like that. I don't know what it is exactly, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting. I mean, I fully understand why these sorts of limits and restrictions on playability are present in games. But, like, how often does Aragorn swing his sword and he doesn't kill the orc he's fighting, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
he always kills the orc. And, like,
Yeah.
the excitement of him being the sort of person who has a cool longsword is that he can pull it out and kill the monster at the climactic part of the fight, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that he has a 60% chance of killing the monster at the
Yes.
climactic
Yeah.
part of the fight. Like
Yeah.
the whole point of him being who he is that he can whip out his awesome sword
Hmm.
and kill the orc chieftain in the climactic moment of the fight.
Yeah.
And I from my history of playing D&D ish games is I feel like I'm always bumping up against that. Like in the fiction and in the literature we follow, like there are like whatever. Elric doesn't have a 40% chance to hit with soul, whatever. What is his sword called?
Stormbringer.
Stormbringer. He doesn't have
Yeah.
a 40% chance to hit. He has a 100% chance to hit with Stormbringer. It hits every time. And then something interesting happens because he hit with Stormbringer, right? Like
Hmm.
he kills the thing, but then it also kills one of his loved ones, or
Yeah.
something like that. That's usually
Yes.
what
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
in Elric
Usually. Yeah.
stories. But,
Yeah.
like with D&D, yeah, like you're right. Like that to me is like the dreaded, like it's right there in the rules. It's incredibly likely you're going to find yourself into one of the cycles of like everyone rolled this round and nobody hit. So I
Hmm.
guess we just start the next round again, roll
Yeah.
initiative, right?
Yeah.
And that feels appropriate, like kind of game wise, but really inappropriate imagination wise, right?
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
Aragorn pulls out his sword or Elric brandishes Stormbringer, he doesn't have a 40% chance to hit, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. I think if they had gone, like a full round without anybody hitting, like I probably would have stepped in to be like, let's adjust the rules a little bit or something like that. Because like that is, it's just no fun, right? Like, I mean, I remember this. I was playing a game with Kyle Latino one time. He was GMing, and it was D&D, and like we were trying to just like jump over like a small a small pit basically, and like everybody was just failing, and it just like it turned into this like comically long sequence of like no one can get their rolls, and it's just like I don't know what this is representing anymore, right? Like it's like yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like that's the sort of thing like when I'm thinking about like oh I'm going to introduce my daughter and her friends to this game, it's like the last thing I want is for them to run up against these rules that like don't make sense to them and aren't providing fun to them, right? In the thing that they're super excited about, right? So it's like they are excited to play Dungeons and Dragons because this is something they've been hearing about their whole lives. It's in media. Every single cartoon they've ever watched has a D&D episode these days, right? It's just like it is this thing, and it is like this cultural juggernaut, right? So they want to play D&D, and the last thing that you want to happen is like, okay, great, like the first 4 times you roll the dice, it's a failure. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, like that's not, oh, yeah, that's not great. Yeah, so I mean, a little bit. It was a little bit of a roll of the dice of like, is that going to happen to them, right? Like, thankfully, I mean, with that encounter in particular, like the odds are in your favor there. But like, there's definitely other encounters and other, that I played where it's like the odds are not in your favor. In fact, you might have a total party kill if you don't play this correctly. And it's like, how do you know how to play correctly if it's the first time you're playing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So, was there
yeah.
a moment in that game that felt like just pure brilliance that you want to, like, is there some moment of excitement in that game that you want to bring into the next game you play with a bunch of jaded 40
Mm.
something adults?
Yes, yeah, for sure. I think, I mean, the thing that I should have let the young GM do that I kind of stopped him from doing, which is like you're at a shipwreck, right? Like, and I was like, oh no, we got to back up and give him like a little bit of reason why. It's like I think the next time I play a game like this, it's just gonna be like you are like there's a harpy screaming down at you. Like that's the first thing that I say, right? Like roll initiative, right? Just getting back to that, like I don't know, like the play part of it. Like it's fun, right? Like it's like that's the thing that's fun, right? Like it's you can give yourself all the motivation you want to like get out, like yeah, get your characters there and stuff. But like the fun part is just like harpy attack that you're surprised by. Right, and like you can start there, and right, you can go back and find those motivation stuff later. But like I mean, that to me was just like it's like yeah, it's such a pure expression of what the game is. Like harpy attacks, they didn't even have a second thought of like we are going to attack it back. It just was like are we going to talk to it or attack it? Right, it just was like everybody draw their weapons. It's time to go. Yeah, and then like I was really proud of my daughter. Right, she sort of hung back and just fired magic missiles at it. Right, it's like
Yeah, yes.
she did what she was
Uh,
supposed to do, right? Like, yeah, it's like, yeah, that's awesome.
did
Yeah, I
anyone
did.
try anything incredibly unexpected?
Yeah, did they
Were they
not?
mostly like, this is a harpy, obviously we got to fight it, we're all fighting the harpy? Was
Yeah,
someone like, I'm gonna like ask the harpy to go to the prom
no,
dance, like
no,
level
yeah,
of like out there?
nothing like that. I mean, there was some like potty humor. I'll say that. I'll leave it there. Here and there.
Yes.
I think the surprising thing is right. So they get on the ship, and like again, you and I as jaded gamers would be like very cautious, right, about this thing. The first thing they did was most of the party went up the mast to the crow's nest, right?
Yes,
Like
of course.
three
That's
of three of
amazing.
them went up there and left the wizard on the boat. It's like, well, that was a bad idea.
Right. The
Yeah, yeah,
worst possible idea, but the best gaming
yes.
idea, right?
Best gaming idea, right? Because like then the harpies attacking as they're like still coming down, down the ladder and stuff, right? So it's just like, yeah, it's great. It's like, yeah, I don't know, it's super fun, right? And like they again, right, they're asking to play again, so I think that is a huge success. Yeah.
This makes me just think about, what is the average age of a D&D adventurer, right? It's like
Hmm.
in my games there's always a sense it's like ages like 18 to 20, right? It's
Yeah.
like really young
Yeah.
adult. And
Yeah.
at that stage, you can be a person who's like, there's a mast. I'm going to climb to the top of this mast. Like it
Yeah.
makes right. It's
Yeah.
it's objectively dumb. It's a
Uh-huh.
terrible tactical maneuver, but obviously you're going to climb to the top of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's a certain like youthful energy I think that is lost when you turn like what 23 or something, and
Yeah.
this no longer
Yeah.
this suddenly this none of this makes any sense anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
like
What is it?
I sometimes wonder just in the D&D adventures I read how much of it, like there's a sort of defensive, I don't know, you can acquire a sort of defensive feeling like once you are old enough to be
Mhm.
logical about stuff, and to
Yeah.
lose that sense of like I'm in a crazy wonderland, I'm just going to do the most I'm going to engage with whatever the closest most colorful thing is. I'm just going to do whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I think there's
Yeah.
a real magic when you let kids play.
Yes. Oh, there absolutely is. Yeah. I mean, their prefrontal cortexes are not fully formed, so it's yeah, yeah, biologically it makes sense too. But yeah, so anyway, we need to wrap up. But like, yeah, thanks for letting me kind of give the recap
Yeah.
there.
So
I'm excited to
is
see
there a
what happens.
takeaway you're taking as like a grown ass man GM?
Mm,
Is there a
yeah,
takeaway you're taking from this?
yeah. I think one takeaway is like I think they're probably too young to really be playing D&D, but that's I've lost that battle, right? So I think there's probably better games for them, but this is what they want to play, so that's fine.
Yeah.
You can introduce some other stuff later. Yeah, and then I think like yeah, my main takeaway is probably just it's like the casualness of it, right? Like we went from like they were all like playing together down in the basement of the house we were at, like just kind of having fun playing, and then we're finally like, oh, like we should go play D&D, like that's what we all got here together to do. So we just went upstairs and started playing, right? Like and they just yeah. And I
Yeah.
think there's a little bit more of a formality that I think has to happen a bit when you're an adult. But I'm also wondering like again, always perpetually wondering about this, like how do we get like playing these games down to something that's a little bit more just like, oh, let's just do it, right? Or like, hey,
Yeah.
we're together, like let's just play. Yeah.
Were any of Did you identify in this flock of kids anyone who is like, I would like to see the weapon table to like evaluate the relative strengths and weaknesses of every weapon on the table? Like this one
Thankfully,
has like
yeah.
a +2 attack
Hmm.
but a -1 like
Yeah.
slowness modifier. Was there anyone like that? Because I'm curious, because I feel
No.
like every in a batch of 10 kids, like one of them will be like, I need to see the Dungeon Master's Guide, please.
Yeah, I think the kid that is the DM, I think if anyone was going to have that, it'd be him. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's one of the girls maybe, I think if she gets a little bit more into the rules might too. But yeah, I don't know. It's sort of it's hard to know. I mean, they don't know that they have options right now,
Yeah,
right? Like
of
so,
course.
yeah. Like I almost brought the player's handbook to be like, oh, here's like the full rules, and I very intentionally was like, you know what? They don't even need to know that exists. Yeah,
Yeah.
exists right now. Yeah,
Yep, for sure.
yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, hey,
Well,
thanks for
yeah,
sharing that experience,
yeah,
Chris. And, if they do kind of return to gaming, it would be really interesting to see. It would be interesting for me to hear if this moves from like a one time, this is a silly game we all play, to, oh, this is like a longer term thing we're all doing together. I would be
yeah.
interested to kind of chart that transition, but
Yes.
maybe it will or won't happen. So we'll see. But please
Yeah,
report back.
yeah. Definitely will. Cool. All right, well, that does it for us. Yeah, so we've been Roll for Topic. We're part of the Roll for It Media podcasting network. Our sister show, The Splat Book, had a surprise episode that launched the day that we're recording this, Tuesday, July 1st. They had Haley on to talk about their new Kickstarter, Book of Worms, which
Yeah.
is super delightful. I mean, I think like a handful of us just have already kickstarted it. I know they've blown past all of their goals. This is another Cloud Curio project. Yeah, so I'm very excited for that one. I managed to get in on the early bird thing on the Kickstarter, so I'm getting some cool physical rewards along
Hey,
with that.
awesome.
Yeah, so that's super cool. You can go listen to that. I have not listened to that episode. You can find it at thesplatbook.com. Yeah, otherwise they're technically on hiatus for another month or two, but then they will be
Yeah.
back to their normally scheduled being mean about D&D podcast. That's not true.
Yes. Perfect.
They love it. Yeah, but I think that does it for us. So I've been
Yeah.
Chris Salzman.
I've been Andy Rao.
Remember, if your players are having fun, you're a great GM.